Hello and welcome to Off the Fence, a podcast where we deconstruct difficult decisions so that we can help figure out what's keeping us stuck and, more importantly, how do we get unstuck? I'm your host, Karen Covey, a former divorce lawyer, mediator, and arbitrator turned coach, author, and entrepreneur. With me today is Tammy Cox. And Tammy is a dedicated transformational coach with a passion for helping women transform their lives and relationships. With a unique focus on inner child healing, Tammy uncovers the root causes of relationship breakdowns, guiding her clients on a deeply transformative journey toward rekindling emotional connection and love. Tammy's personal life journey was marked by significant childhood wounds, bringing her to a crossroads where she faced two choices: surrender to despair or embark on a path of healing. She chose the latter, committing to an inspiring voyage of self discovery and personal growth, which shaped her into the transformational coach she is today. Tammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Miss Karen. I'm happy to be here. I know
I,
this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I am thrilled to have you. And, I touched in your bio on a little bit of what got you here, but I'm always curious, what got you to the point of being a transformational coach? Start wherever you want to start.
Well, like most of us in this space, it came from a very colorful childhood filled with so much trauma. Um, and it really wasn't until I became a wife and a mom where all of my triggers started to bubble to the surface. Like everything that I thought was behind me, it was way back there. I started to trigger. I started to trigger constantly. And I got to the place where I was just like, I just, I can't live like this. I can't go on. Like, this is just not okay. And what most people don't realize is the wounds in that early development, if they're not dealt with, you literally hold them in your body. And so having kids was really what, it's really that the defining moment when I had my first daughter, when I looked at her and I just realized this precious little angel, I don't want her to go through any of the that I went through. And that's really what I had been on my healing journey, but that's really what triggered me to go deeper because I had been trying, the therapies, the talk therapies, the books, the retreats, religion, prayer. Like I tried all the things and I'd get a little bit better, but things would tend to just go back to the same. And so I needed something deeper. And for me, that was really working on neutralizing the traumas and really working on those first 5 years of my development where most of our personality is actually created. So, and then of course, once I did that for myself, having these tremendous results, I was like, this is what I would like to bring to the world. Like every woman needs this work. Every woman needs to have the opportunity to heal herself so that she can have the results that she wants. It just so happens that that turned more into relationships, specifically love relationships, because hello, that's where all the most difficult triggers come up for us is really the most intimate and closest relationship. So that's kind of where I swim around in the relationship space. And it's really my love because most people don't see it, but like your relationship with yourself is reflected out into your relationships with everyone else. So when you
Yeah.
heal you, you heal everyone around you.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, but I want to go back and bring out something that you touched upon when you said, I thought I left all that stuff behind me. And I think a lot of us do exactly the same. We think we're okay. We think we've dealt with our stuff, right? So if somebody is out there and listening and wants to know, and they're like, well, I think I dealt with my childhood stuff, right? How can they know? Because you thought you had dealt with yours too, and lo and behold, not so
Mm.
much, right? So, how can somebody know what are the signs that the problem is really with them and maybe they haven't dealt with the things that they should have already?
Well, a few things. One is your emotional state. What's your emotional state like? Do you feel peace in your body most of the time? Do you feel love? Do you feel these higher frequencies, which is love, joy, peace, all these freedom, fun? Are you hanging out there most of the time? Or are you on the bottom of the scale? I see that a lot of people who haven't dealt with their stuff, they spend a lot of time in depression, which is powerlessness. So that's one way of determining. Another is, what do your relationships look like? Are they beautiful, give? I mean, we all have issues. Don't get me wrong. I've been on my journey a long time and my ish is still there, right? I think it's just a lifelong thing to unpack layers like an onion, right? Um,
Hmm.
but when we know we have a lot of active trauma within our body, we're just very unwell. We're at the lower end of the scale. We have a lot of fear-based thinking. We operate from a very subconscious, our subconscious programming, which is basically the same cycles of thought every single day, every single day. But really, our relationships, our most intimate relationships, are a reflection of our relationship with ourselves. So those are a couple of big ones that I've noticed. But like I mentioned, we all have healing work to do because trauma is a gift to us. It is an absolute gift. However, if we do not neutralize the events, what happens is you hold the pain inside of your body and it goes with you all through life. And so when you have a fight with this person or that person, or something comes up in one of these relationships, it's triggering that old wound. So if you get triggered, it's a really good indicator that you have wounds, soft spots like sores, that it's triggering. And so that's what it was for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that the challenge for so many people is that when they are in a relationship and they are triggered, the tendency that most of us have is to say, well, you did it to me, right? You're triggering me, as if the trigger is something that I have no control over, which is not true. You and I both know
Mhm.
that. But the tendency is to look outward and say, it's your fault, person that I'm in this relationship with, right? So when somebody finds themselves doing that, or getting upset and angry with the other person for triggering them, what can or should they do with that piece of information? Because fundamentally it's just a piece of information. This behavior triggered me to feel this way. What do they do then?
Well, I like to investigate it. When I get triggered, I like to sit down with my journal and I like to say, okay, what am I bothered by? Like, what's bothering me? And I will just go on and on and on. And usually, what happens is we'll get to a place which is like the root cause. What am I believing about myself in this moment? So, I have teenagers, and I wanted to figure out why I was so triggered when they disrespected me. And I use the quotes simply because if I feel disrespected, that doesn't mean that that was their intention, but it's how I felt by it, right? The first thing is you got to take complete ownership of your stuff. If you get triggered, it's not the other person, it's you. They are, like I said, tapping an old sore that you have, an old wound. So if you got curious about it and started to investigate it, you'd see the belief that was underlying it. And so that's what we're looking for. So when I started doing this with my kids and triggering me, I started to notice that underneath it was a belief that I wasn't a good mom. And
Ooh.
so I had to dig, like, it didn't come out like just pop into my mind the second after. No, I had to sit down with my journal and I really had to list the things off until I got to the bottom of it. And at the bottom of it was this belief, I'm not a good mom. So I had to deal with a belief. And I believe that's what we all get to do if we really want to get to the bottom of our life and own all of it, then we have to know what our beliefs are, why we have them, and to choose them on purpose. Because if we're going based on the beliefs that were imprinted on us on the moment of conception, where all of dad's DNA and all of mom's DNA become our DNA, if we're going to stick with that programming, then we don't do any of the inner healing. But if we want a different outcome than our parents got, then we all have to do our inner healing journey, or else you're going to get stuck with that same old system.
I 100% agree, but I want to poke a little bit because I think this is a place where a lot of people like they get stuck. It's the obstacle that gets in their way because they, what if I said to you, well, yes, but what I believe is true. It's the truth. It's not like an opinion, it's a belief. I believe this is true. So how can I just change it? What do I do? Lie to myself? What would you say?
It is a truth, right? We call them, in my line of work, we call them relative truths. So within each human being, we all have these things called relative beliefs. These things are bad. These things are good. This is right. This is wrong. We all have those. But you adopted them from your parents and your parents' parents and your parents' parents' parents. So if you don't start to investigate them, first of all, you just took what was handed to you and you didn't question it. You just said, okay, right? And then the next thing is, if it's a belief that is serving you, don't touch it. Leave it alone. It's good, wonderful. But if it's a belief that's not hurting you, and I'll give you a couple for instances, because in my line of work, these are called life commands. And a life command is something that's developed from from trauma, specifically happens in the early part of life. Two of mine around men were men hurt me and men aren't safe because my dad was abusive. Right. And so, with those beliefs stamped onto my track, what kind of men do you think that I attracted? So, I give that example for people to know that if I never went in and I never tweaked my beliefs, that I would be stuck with a bogus system that really didn't work for my highest and best. So, instead of judging it, guys, if we could just go back and look at them and be, like you said, neutral about it. It's not bad or good. It's just the system we were given. It's offered us a program to start this life out with. But now that we know, modern science is brilliant. I study this stuff. And it's like we now know that our beliefs track back on our epigenetics, which is stamped onto our DNA. It goes back 7 generations. And if we're holding on to beliefs that are 7 generations old, fear-based beliefs that aren't serving us, it's like you can keep that system by all means, but most of it isn't serving us, right? And that's where we're at. And if we look out at the world and the people that are really struggling with the polarities of right and wrong right now, we're just looking at people's beliefs. And the ones that are really struggling are the ones that are yelling the loudest for their team, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah. But how do you separate yourself from your belief? Because to most people, a belief feels like it's reality. Like this is just the way things are, right? And I don't know about you, but I've worked with people who will argue to the death for their belief. Like you said,
mhm.
it's the people who are cheering for their team the loudest. No, I'm right. I'm right. I'm right. Um, how can you help them look and see what can they do to figure out is what I'm arguing that's right? Is it a truth? Is it reality? Or is it a belief? Is it something that I can change?
Well, I believe everything can be changed. However, I do not try and force my beliefs on someone else. And that is my belief that you can change a belief. Because if they don't believe that they can change a belief, then they can't.
Yep,
Whether you
100%.
think you're right or you think you're wrong, you're correct, right? So you can't argue with someone's belief system. However, kind of what I was saying to you before we started recording was what I've noticed with people, they have to be in so much pain before they'll finally even make the decision to change. And
Yep,
so that's how it was for me. I had to be so desperate, in so much pain, and at the end of my rope, so to speak, before I was like, to change this. And if you're not open at all, some people are so closed, right? They have
yep,
walls up everywhere. They're very closed. They're not open to another person's opinion. And in that case, I say, do not try and change their mind. Walk away, wish them well, bless them in every way, but do not try and argue for their limitations with them. If they want to believe that life cannot get better for them, that they can't fix this, that, or the other, if they want to believe that the world is terrible, if they want to, like, whatever they want to believe, they have every right to do so. But will I be getting involved in that conversation? No.
Yeah.
I'll say, bye, sweetie. Have fun with all them beliefs, but I'm going this way. I'm going to feel good.
Yeah, I that makes so much more sense, but I want to dig in a little bit because it sounds like a lot of this, I mean, some of it's imprinting, some of it's epigenetics, whatever, but some of it, a lot of it, what we're familiar with is trauma, right?
Yeah.
So, trauma in childhood causes you to create or adopt, however you want to look at it, a lot of beliefs about how the world works, some of which, as you get older, you find out maybe aren't true and they're definitely not serving you, right?
Hmm.
So the question that I have for you is what kind of trauma triggers what let's just call it a limiting belief, right? What are you looking at massive child abuse? Did you have to get beaten as a child? Do you have to get neglected? Did you have to be abused in a horrible way? Or is it something less or everything in between? Like, what constitutes trauma in your work?
So, trauma is just a high state of negative emotion. And in this high state of negative emotion, boom, a belief gets stamped on there. So, no, it doesn't have to be significant. I will share one with you that didn't even seem like trauma to me, okay, but impacted me greatly. So, my dad died when I was 11. We didn't have much money when he was alive. The Christmas after he died, we had all this money because the government, took care of us. And so I wake up on Christmas morning, I go out and I see all these presents under the tree that I'd never experienced before. And I'm like, oh. And then the next second, the belief came in you have to lose someone you love in order to have more money. And I was
Ooh.
carrying that one forever. It was not a traumatic event that you would think. But in that moment, I created this belief that I had all these things because he died. And so this is how our everything works. So no, it doesn't have to be this big catastrophic event. But another thing I'll say about trauma is when I'm working with someone and we're going back to neutralize these big events, we start big and then go smaller, so to speak. I actually use their subconscious mind. I ask their subconscious mind to take me to the first event they want to deal with. So I really work with that part of themselves. Um, when I'm working with a person, we notice themes. So we go back to the event. They feel everything they felt in as that child at that age. And then I say, what are you believing about yourself in this moment? I start to ask this over and over and over again. So basically, I have this whole page of things that they're believing. And then what we do is we go through them at the end. And I say, after we've gone through the process and they're kind of more in their conscious state, I say, okay, which one of these are really highlighted to you? Like they come up a lot. You'll say them in your mind when you got in a fight with someone. And so for me, the two that were just running my whole life was I'm unlovable and I'm not important. And so if I looked back at all my events, they were on every single one. So that's how we find the ones that track are on the ones that are really, really powerful on your particular track. They will be in every event that we visit.
Is this the kind of thing that someone can find on their own, like to look at the themes that have been tracking through their whole life, or at least have been tracking through their relationships, because the beliefs that we hold and that we create as a child come with us through the rest of our lives. And then obviously it impacts our relationships. Is this the kind of thing that, like, if somebody wants to, if they're saying, you know what, this my relationship isn't working for me or my relationships aren't working for me, um, what can they do to dig down and find this, or is it the kind of thing that they really need help to find?
Well, I would always advise someone to get help from someone else because, first of all, we will find every stinking way in the book to try and get out of facing these things a lot of times, right? So when you have someone to, first of all, hold you accountable, hold your hand through it, take you step by step, nurture you and what, yep, you're doing fine. We're doing this. You do it together with someone, you're a lot more likely to do it. And also, you're just going to go deeper in general because you have the accountability of two people there. So, even my clients that know almost every one of my processes and can technically do them on their own, they're still not going to get as far as when I take them through it because I'm going to cause them, I'm going to see it from a different perspective, and I'm going to cause them maybe to go even a little bit deeper than they would have done on their own. So I will always, always, always say, if you want the fastest, shortest, easiest option, have someone walk you through it. But if you're like a lot of people and you're just sort of want to dip your toe in the water, you could totally do some of these practices on your own. Like I said, I don't think you're going to get as far or as fast, but you totally could. You could start with checking out the patterns and the themes. Okay, here's my patterns and themes. And then you could go, I do a lot of journal work with my clients because when you put pen to paper, there's a certain sort of focus that happens and you can kind of see it in black and white. You can, it's good. So, okay, you write out the patterns you see. And maybe, you grow that list. And then you start to identify, okay, yeah, in this relationship, I did this and that happened. And it was the same breakup. And so identify the patterns and then say, what did I feel about that? And then if you can grab a hold of the emotion, you can track the emotion back. That's what I do with my clients. We track back via the emotion. And so, yes, you could do some of this work on your own. I scoop up a lot of free resources out there, but gosh, there's just nothing like working with someone who's done it so many times and can show you that faster, easier path. Because like my journey was long. And with my clients, it's much shorter. So it's like, I guess you could take, 22 years if you want.
Seems like little excessive to me, but
Hmm.
we all have our own paths. But one
Hmm.
of the things that I really am excited about in the way that you work with people is in your new podcast. It's called Behind the Veil, right?
Hmm. Anonymous transformations.
And tell me about that. Tell the audience about it because I just think this is the coolest idea ever.
Yeah. And that's another thing that is like a free resource. So you can watch my podcast, see how I take someone back and start. My goal is that people would learn how to do this with themselves and do it on each other. But
Mhm.
yeah, basically someone comes on, they're completely anonymous. They tell me, okay, this is my issue. This is kind of my pattern with men, or here's where I'm at in my marriage. And then we dissect it a little bit. And then I have them take me back to their childhood and we do, some transformation work. So it's so good. I love it because it's my absolute give. Like I said, people can learn the processes to do on themselves. They could also, I feel like just watching someone go through a transformation, I get something out of it every time I take someone through a transformation.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's just a give, give, give all around. Plus, if someone didn't have the resources to hire me, they could always just, apply to be on the podcast and get a free transformation and like stuff like that. It's the first step, but it's like, there are so many free resources. There's YouTube and so many great resources. And I feel like no one's doing what I'm doing where they're really taking you into their process.
Yeah.
And right? Because you,
Yeah. 100%.
yeah, so
So,
that's what I love about it.
you've worked with a lot of people at this point. I don't know how many, but a lot, right? So
Hmm.
what are the common patterns that you see, particularly in women? We'll start there. What patterns do women typically, or do a lot of women have in relationships that are holding them back?
Well, kind of what I was breaking down for you in our pre-call was what I'm seeing now as far as, okay, the feminine is now rising, right? We went through so many years where we weren't even considered like human beings. We were not autonomous. We were the possession of a man.
Right.
We didn't have a voice. Like, how long ago were we even able to vote? It hasn't even been that long, right? And so we're finally at this place where women are now energetically almost 50-50 to men. And this may sound crazy, but this changes everything because now what I notice with my clients is when they come in, they're still putting themselves down here. Husband is up here. Now, I attract a certain kind of woman because I have a strong personality. I'm a controller. So I tend to attract women that are more supporters. And they come to me and we're
Level them
trying
up.
to lift
Yeah.
her up. So women have a lot of like, and men have them too. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Men have them too. But in this time of like women, the feminine rising, she gets to own her power like she never has before. And it gets to be okay, right? It gets to be okay for her to own her power. So that's a huge part of it when we go into, like, I was raised in a religious system where women were lesser than, where children were lesser than. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of people. And what I'm trying to do is demolish these ideas that because you're female, you're lesser than, right? So that's really the theme I see happening is that, that's why marriage in general, I think, is either going to go extinct or in the next 100 years, I just perceive it either going extinct or we have to shift it completely to where it doesn't have this big, bad, horrible viewpoint when it's dissolved. It's like, why does divorce have to be so bad? If it worked for a certain time and certain place, great. But when it dissolves, it doesn't have to be this big, hairy, horrid deal, right? The woman is now empowered. She doesn't need a man to survive. She can make it on her own, right? And so I think those old beliefs, that old mindset, it's going away quickly, but we need to allow it to move a little bit quicker. So let's stop beating ourselves up about all the failures. No failures, okay? There is no failures. You can't get this thing wrong. We have to let go of the guilt and shame of all the voices that tell us don't do this, do this, do that.
Yeah.
Those voices have to dissolve and we got to let go of the judgment.
That's huge, but it's also easier said than done. So, what would you say to somebody who's probably been so entrenched since childhood in judging everything, which including themselves, right? Oh, this is wrong, this is bad, this I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. I mean, some people will should themselves to death, right? So, what would you say to somebody? How can they start to let go of some of that when it feels like who they are?
Yeah. Well, that's just part of the healing process. It's one of the big things that we work on. I work on with my clients is dissolving the judgment because judgment leads to suffering. Also, this idea of time, like time is not a real thing. We've created it. It feels real to us. It feels very real, but it's actually not. And as an eternal being, such as we all are, we just have to reach that conclusion that we didn't come here to do this for them and that for them and this for them and this for that. And like you didn't come here to fulfill everyone's agenda. You came here for your own life purpose. And the only way that I know that you can find that life purpose is for you to heal yourself. And I have my clients stare at the emotional scale all the time so that they understand the higher frequencies versus the lower.
Okay, let me stop you right here. What is the emotional scale? Can you explain that?
Yeah, I'd love to be able to put the picture in here. Basically, everything vibrates in the universe, right? Everything has a frequency. Every person has a frequency. The lower frequencies are going to be the guilt, shame, powerlessness, fear, all that stuff. The higher frequencies are going to be love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, freedom, fun, lightheartedness, all that stuff up here. For you to identify where your frequency is the majority of the time, when my clients come to me, they're like, oh, I'm on this fear one. So we look at the emotional scale so we can say, okay, so you're down here. and it spirals down, right? So you can go lower or you can spiral up and go higher. However, if you're not aware of where you're at, how can you reach a higher level? And that's the goal. So most of them start out in the fear, right? Because they've been
Mhm.
given the bogus program of fear.
Yeah.
And for them to choose the higher states, I'm like, well, what do you want to feel in your day? Do you want to feel joy? Do you want to feel love? Do you want to feel freedom? Pretty sure we all do, really. But we have to identify the beliefs and the thought patterns that are keeping us on the lower part of that scale.
Yeah, but that's the key, right? If somebody, they may want, intellectually, they want the joy and the love and the freedom and all the things that make them feel lighter, but they don't believe they can get it. From
Yeah.
where they're so down, they don't believe it's possible. So how can you help them? I guess we're going back to shifting those beliefs, but with something that basic, fundamentally, if they don't believe they can, they can't. So how can somebody who is caught in that feeling start to shift it?
Well, a huge one is forgiveness. We
Ooh,
have to forgive. And yes, it all goes back to self forgiveness, right? Because everything is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. So you got to forgive yourself. This goes hand in hand with judgment. So that's why
mm-hmm.
I say I make them look at the scale, see where guilt and shame are, see where fear is, see where powerlessness is. Is this where you want it? Because all those beliefs are keeping you down here. If you want to believe that, then there's nothing I can do. But that's why I feel like showing them the scale gives them a visual of saying, oh, I'm down here. Well, what are the beliefs that you got going on? Oh, well, I still haven't forgiven myself for this. I married the wrong person. I cut someone off on the freeway. They have all these guilty, they have all this guilt towards themselves. And I'm like, well, what would it take for you to let's just cut the ties with all the negative past? What if we were so completely new in this moment that none of the in the past came with us and we were right here, brand new in this present moment with nothing from back there here? It's just us here now. We just got to learn how to break up with the negative past. And forgiveness is such a hard word for people because I think they don't understand it.
What they don't people understand? What do you think?
I think that they don't understand that unforgiveness is simply just cutting the tie to the negative emotion that you have tied to certain events. Just breaking the tie. Okay. So if it's like, so I'll use my relationship with my father. My father, like I said, died of AIDS when I was 11. I had a lot of anger at him. He 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 probably he probably receive I hate to I don't know what this word is, receive the disease. That's not the word. Help me with the word.
Caught?
Caught. He caught AIDS by cheating on my mother. And it's very likely that he had it when my mom conceived all three of her children, so including me. So what could have been all of us, my entire family, was just him, right? Because there was a miracle. So I had a lot of anger at him because of all the damage he did to my family. And there was so much damage, right? I had a lot of unforgiveness. He is now long gone. Like I said, I was 11 and I was left with all this hatred for him. Now, what good is that going to do me to have hatred for a dead man? What is that going to? It is like, I love this analogy. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Well, the other person's already dead. And I'm poisoning myself with that toxic
Right.
energy. So it's like you think that it's letting them off the hook, but it's not. Forgiveness has nothing to do with letting the other person off the hook. It's letting you off the hook. It's
Yep.
breaking up with this idea that by having some sort of negative tie to that uh, series of events, that somehow serves you. It doesn't. It doesn't serve you. So just let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go. It's
Yeah.
very easy, but people want to make it a big thing. But if it keeps you in guilt and shame, like it's sorry, it is not serving you.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that, but again, it all comes back to the belief that they can let it go. It's like some people are so, they hold on so tightly, that letting go seems really, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. It did to me as well. But if I showed you what it did to your body, like all the energy that you hold in your body, all the emotions that you hold in your body affect you. So there's a lot of people. One lady, I just took her through one process of forgiveness. She had her dad was beat her, and then every man she was with beat her. And we just went through this simple process of breaking the tie and releasing. And she was like allergic to all this stuff. She's like, ever since we went through that, I went through that session with you, all of my allergies went away. So when I tell you that you are a deeply, intricately connected being, physical dis-ease is connected to your emotional state. So if it were affecting you on those levels and you knew it, why would you want to hang on to it?
Yeah, I think that's the key is that this is the kind of thing that we're not taught as we go through, as we grow up, as we go through school, as whatever. And most people don't, it takes a long time for them to see the connection between this, the judgment, the guilt, the trauma, the whatever happened in the past, and the sickness or the dis-ease of the present, that their body feels bad. But there is a connection. I mean, it's just that because it's not something that you can see right in front of you. You kind of have to connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
And you can connect the dots in a variety of different ways,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it hard to say, well, is this way right or is that way? Am I looking at this right or am I making it all up?
Yeah. No, there's so many different ways, and so many beautiful ways. And I just think it starts with the intention that you're letting it go. It starts with the intention of like, I'm doing what serves me best because
Yep.
I deserve to be so freaking happy. It's like, I make my clients say that to themselves all day long. I am happy because I choose to be happy, because I deserve to be happy, because it's my birthright, because I want to be. It's like, yes, you get to be happy. Like, why hang out on the lower end of that scale where it feels just awful? Like, why?
Right. Yeah.
Why make
100%.
yourself suffer when you just don't have to?
Yeah. I agree. Well, this has been an amazing conversation, and I hope that people really take you up on your offer to check out the podcast because you call it behind the veil, but it's also kind of a behind the scenes way to look at,
Hmm.
all the different processes and techniques that you can use. Like you said, people can do it on themselves
Hmm.
or they can, work with someone like you or you
Hmm. Or me.
to guide them through, which makes it a whole lot more efficient and effective. But again, everybody's got their own way, but for heaven's sakes, at least people, go check out the podcast because it's to me, I'm going to go check it out because I'm fascinated. So,
Mm.
Tammy, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and sharing your journey with everyone here. If people want to know more about you and the work that you do, where's the best place for them to find you?
So I'll go ahead and give you my link tree. It has all my socials on there. If you have like a relationship question or a question about any of this, you could just reach out to me on Instagram. But if you're interested in anything that I said and you want to see if I could be a good fit for you, I have discovery calls that you can book straight off the link. Um, and if you want to apply to be on the podcast, the link will be on there as well. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. I would love that. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. And for those of you watching or listening, all of the things will be linked in the show notes. So it's going to be really easy for you to access Tammy and to find her. Tammy, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Miss Karen. It has
And
been wonderful.
it has been a fun conversation. So for those of you out there who are watching or who are listening, if you like this conversation, if you'd like to hear more conversations just like this, do me a big favor. Give this a thumbs up, like, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.